Okay, today we're going to talk about literal equations and variations. Literal equations are when you take a formula and you transform it into another formula that you can use. For example, let's say you are a box builder and you are constantly given the volume, the length, and the width, but you always need to find out what the height is. You could then take your volume equals length times width times height, divide by length and width, and now you're solved for height. So now when they give you the volume, the length, and the width, you can just keep plugging it into the same equation rather than manipulating it each time. That's a literal equation. So the volume of a cone is V equals 1/3 pi r squared h, where r is the radius and h is the height. So we want to solve for h. So we have V is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. Now I could divide by 1/3 pi r squared right now and have h by itself, but then the problem would be is I would have a fraction inside of a fraction. And we tried to avoid that. So first thing I'm going to do is lose the fraction with a 3. So V goes into 1 goes into 3 3 times, and 3 goes into 3 1 time. So I get 3V equals this gets pi r squared h, because this canceled out with the 3. Now I can divide by the pi r squared because they're both being multiplied by h, and h will equal 3v over pi r squared. Now I could do the height each time without having to manipulate it. So now let's say the volume is 50 pi and the radius is 5. So I get 150 pi over, this was 5, 25 pi. 25 goes into 156 times, and the pi's go away. So my answer is 6 feet. So I didn't have to keep manipulating it each time I was given the new information. Okay, on the next one, I want to solve for y, but as you can see, there are two terms with y in it. So anytime you have two terms with the letter that you need to solve, the first thing you have to do is get the terms on the same side. So I'm going to subtract the by and take it to the other side and get y minus by equals c plus I plus g plus n. The second thing I need to do is make sure the only terms on that side are terms that contain the letter I want to solve for. And they are. I have two terms on the left-hand side. They both contain y. Now I can pull the y out using the distributive property in reverse. So y divided by y is 1. by divided by y is b equals c plus I plus g plus n. Divide by 1 minus b. Now y is by itself. Y is equal to c plus I plus g plus n all over 1 minus b. Okay, so in the next one, I want to solve for h, and I have two terms with h, so the first thing I have to do is get the h's on the same side. So I subtract the 3h. The second thing I have to do is make sure that only h's are on this side that I'm going to pull out the h's from. Terms with h's. This 4x needs to move. So 2xh minus 3h equals 4x minus 3. Now I can pull the h out and get 2x minus 3 equals 4x minus 3, and divide by 2x minus 3. Now, people are going to be tempted to take that 4x and reduce it with the 2x and cross out the negative 3's. But remember, terms are connected with addition and subtraction signs, so it's all or nothing. I either take all of 4x minus 3 or I take none of 4x minus 3. I do not have a 4x minus 3 in the bottom, so none of it moves. Okay, next one I want to solve for p. What's with p? RT. It's being multiplied, so I divide it out. P is equal to I over RT. Easy one compared to the last two, huh? Okay, on the next one I want to solve for x. Both the x terms are on the same side. There are no terms on the left side that don't have an x, so I can pull the x out automatically. 2h minus 4 equals 3h minus 3. I can divide by the 2h minus 4, and I get x is equal to 3h minus 3. over 2x minus 4. And if I want to pull out that 3 on the top and pull out that 2 on the bottom, that's fine, but nothing's going to reduce. The perimeter of a rectangular picture window is 466 inches. The length of the window is 55 inches more than the width of the window. Find the dimensions of the window. Remember, sentence by sentence. The perimeter of a rectangular window is 466. So P equals 2L plus 2W. P is 466. The length of the window is, that means L equals 55 more than the width, W plus 55. So every time I see L, I'm going to put in W plus 55. $466 equals 2W plus 110 plus 2W. 466 equals 4W plus 110. Move the 110. 356 equals 4W. Divide by 4. W is 89 inches. Therefore, the length is 89 plus 55, which is 144 inches. So I found my width and my length. It said find the dimensions of the window, which I did. The surface area of a cylinder soup can is 46.5 square inches. The formula is S equals 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi rh. And if the radius is 1.375 inches, what is the height of the can? Well, I could plug the numbers in and I could solve for h. And that would be fine because right now I only have one problem where I'm solving for h, so it would be fine. But since our lesson is solving for a letter, I'm going to put it in the form where it's already set up for h. So S minus 2 pi r squared over 2 pi r equals h. Now I'm going to put everything in that I know. 46.5 minus 2 pi times 1.375 squared. Don't forget to put parentheses around the top if we're using a calculator, due to the fact that it'll do order of operations and it'll divide before we want it to. So we need to put parentheses around the top to make the calculator divide in the order we want. Do the numerator, do the denominator, then divide. Parentheses 2 times 3.14 times 1.375. So this parentheses around the top and the bottom forces the calculator to do the numerator first, then the denominator, and then divide. So parentheses 46.5 minus 2 times 3.14 times 1.375 squared divided by 2 times 3.14 times 1.375. So h is approximately 4.01, and that would be inches. So we used our knowledge of literal equations, solve for h first, and then plug the numbers in. You could have plugged all the numbers in since we were only doing it once, and then solve for h. Okay, but I just wanted to practice solving literal equations. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is variations. Variations are 3 types that we're going to be working with, and then those 3 types can be combined. We have a direct variation, and the formula is y equals kx, where k is the variation variable. An indirect variation, or sometimes it's called an inverse variation, is y equals k over x, since the inverse, x is on the bottom as its reciprocal. And a joint variation is y equals kxz, where we have a direct variation with more than one condition. Okay, so let's start talking about variations. Okay, the water supply in Northern California depends on the snowpack of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. The volume of the water produced from melting snow varies directly as the volume of snow. Meteorologists have determined that 250 cubic centimeters of snow will melt to 28 cubic centimeters of water. How much water does 1,200 cubic centimeters of melting snow produce? Now, this could be done as a proportion, and some people do. But once we get to the inverses and we get to the joints and we get the combinations, it's a lot harder to set up if the only method you know is the proportion method. So we're going to do the formula method. The direct formula method is y is equal to kx. So we're doing direct. So water supply in Northern California depends upon the snowpack of Sierra Mountains. The volume of the water is directly proportional with the melting snow. So water is directly proportional with snow. So I set up the formula. Now I'm going to use the information in the next sentence to find out what K is. Meteorologists have determined that 250 cubic centimeters of snow will melt to 28 cubic centimeters of water. So 28 equals K times 25. Divide by 25. So 28 divided by 25. 1.12. K equals 1.12. Oh, wait a minute, I have 250. That might make a big difference, huh? 28 divided by 250. 0.122. So I'll make sure I have my numbers in there, right? 0.112. Okay, so my K is 0.112. I'm going to come up here, I'm going to rewrite the equation, this equation, with the W, with the 0.112, and the S. Now I'm going to use the last sentence to figure out the answer to my question. How much water is 0.112 times 1200 centimeters of melting snow? So 0.112 times 1200. The water would be 134.4 cubic inches, means centimeters. Let's try another direct one. The distance s that a body falls from rest varies directly the same as the square of time, t, of the fall. If the skydiver falls 64 feet in 2 seconds, how far will they fall in 4.5 seconds? Okay, the distance s varies directly as the square of time. If a skydiver falls 64 feet in 2 seconds, don't forget to square it, so I can divide by 4, K is 16. So S is equal to 16t squared. How far will they fall in 4.5 seconds? So S equals 16 times 4.5 squared. 16 times 4.5 squared is 324 feet. So they're directlies. The length of a violin string varies inversely as the frequency of the vibration. A violin string 8 inches long vibrates at a frequency of 640 cycles per second. What is the frequency of a 10-inch string? Okay, sentence by sentence. The length of a violin string varies inversely with the frequency of its vibration. A violin string that is 8 inches long has a frequency of 640. Cross multiply, K is equal to 8 times 640, 5,120. L is equal to 5,120 as my variation value over F. What is the frequency if I have a 10-inch string? So 10 equals 5120 over F. Cross multiply. 5120 equals 10F. Divide by 10. My frequency would be 512 cycles per second. And I got my label from right there. Okay, the owner of rollerblades now determined that the monthly sales S of its skates varies directly as its advertising budget, A, but inversely as the price of the skates, P. When $6,000 is spent on advertising and the price of the skates are $60,000 is spent on advertising, the price of skates are $40. The monthly sales are 12,000 pairs of rollerblades. Write an equation of the variation for both models. Okay, so the owner of rollerblades now determined that the monthly sales S varies directly with the advertising budget, but inversely with the price of the skates. When $60,000 is spent on advertising and the price of the skates are $40, $12,000 is 12,000 skates are sold. So 12,000 times 40 divided by 60,000, K is 8. So S is equal to 8A over P. This is A's answer. B. Determine the monthly sales if the amount of advertising budget increases to 70,000. So S is equal to 8 times 70,000 over 40. We did not increase the price. So 8 times 70,000 divided by 40. Now don't forget, order of operation is going to happen. It doesn't make a difference here because it will multiply before it divides, so we're okay with parentheses. The sales would be 14,000 skates. Okay, so we've done direct, we've done inverse or indirectly. They're called both names, so I just want you to be aware of that. So now let's see what we got. The volume of a cone V varies jointly as its height and the square of the radius R. A cone with a radius of 6 feet and a height of 10 feet has a volume of 120 feet. See, I need an L here. 120 pi cubic feet. Find the volume of a cone having a radius of 12 feet and a height of 2 feet. Okay, sentence by sentence. The volume of a cone varies jointly with the height and the square of the radius. A cone with a radius of 6 feet and a height of 10 has a volume of 120 pi. So this becomes 360 when I take 36 times 10, so I'm going to divide by 360. 1/3 pi equals K. Now I could put 3.14 in, but I'm just going to leave it as pi right now. So up we go. V is equal to 1/3 pi HR squared. Find the volume of the cone if the radius is 12 feet and the height is 2 feet. So 12 squared times 2 times 1/3 is 96. So the volume is 96 pi. Now remember, I didn't use pi. And the reason I didn't is because their volume was in pi, cubic feet. If you put pi in, you would have got 96 times 3.14, and you would have gotten approximately, don't forget your approximate sign, 301.44 cubic feet. This is an exact answer. This is an estimated answer, because we use the estimated value of pi. Centrifugal force, C, of a body moving in a circle varies jointly with the radius, man, I'm having some problems with my spelling, of a circular path R and the body's mass M, and inversely with the square of time, T, takes to move about a full circle. A 6-gram body moving in a circle with a radius of 100 centimeters at a rate of 1 revolution per 2 seconds has a force of 6,000 dynes. Find the force of 18-gram body moving in a circle with a radius of 100 centimeters at a rate of 1 revolution in 3 seconds. I know, you're almost ready to give up, but let's take it sentence by sentence. Since the force C varies jointly with the radius R and the body mass M, and inversely with the square of time. So if you take it sentence by sentence, it's not nearly as bad. And notice we have jointly and inversely in the same one. A 6-gram body, that's its mass, with the 6 radian body moving in a circle with the radius of 100, has, at the rate of 100, at 1 revolution per 2 seconds, that would be 1/2, and don't forget to square it, is equal to 6,000. So let's see what we got here. We have 600 on the top divided by 1/4, because half squared is 1/4, 150. So I have 60,000 equals K times 150 divided by 150. So 6,000 divided by 150 gives me 40. So K is 40. So C is equal to 40 Rm over T squared. Find the force of an 18-gram body moving in a radius of 100 centimeters times my 40, going at 1 revolution every 3 seconds, which is 1/3, and don't forget to square it. So 40 times 100 times 18 divided by 1 divided by 9. Oop, I made a mistake back here. I gotta go back. This division right here is not this. Double checked my stuff and I got 2.5 as K. So I need to go back here and put my 2.5 in. And that's why it's always good to, even after you think you have the right answer, if it doesn't make sense, go back and check your work. So let's try this again. 18 2.5 times Rm T squared. 18 is my mass. Circle 100. 2.5 C over 1/3 squared. When I did it, I knew it didn't make sense, so I knew there had to be a mistake somewhere. So I went back to find my mistake. When I multiply the top this time, I get 4,500 divided by 1/9, because 1/3 squared is 1/9. And now I get a force of 40,500 dyne, and that makes so much more sense. So my mistake was right here and in my division, because I had 600 divided by 0.25, got 2,400. So it was 6,000 equals 2,400 K divided by 2,400. K is 2.5. So I apologize on that, but everybody makes mistakes, so it's best to make sure that you've done them correctly. So if an answer doesn't make sense, go back and see if there was a mistake that was made. Now it's your turn to practice.